I hope soon I'll have a fixed soundboard where I can make noises again.
I like your DJ Kevin.
We defaulted to just making them on our own, but it's more
It's not good.
comical than anything because our like, yeah, it's not
It's
as
not
cute.
the same.
Yeah.
Or what's one?
It loses its magical touch.
Not quite there. Not quite there. Oh
So I had
man.
a conversation with a builder earlier where, as marketers, do you start looking at different experiences that you have in your life differently? So, like, we were
Oh
talking
yeah.
about Disney World for her is different because now she's looking at it and wondering, like, how do they do that? How do they execute this?
Mm-hmm.
How are they, how much money do they spend on this?
Yeah, we're ruined.
It's really fascinating.
We can't enjoy anything. I mean, we do
Absolutely
enjoy it,
ruined.
but it's like you can't just like I don't know, receive whatever's happening. You go to Disney and you're like, oh, this is this, versus just like, wow, look at this magical place on Earth. Just happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for me, it
You
was
can't turn it off.
when Jane Marr and I were working on a design studio for our Pittsburgh builder. She kind of just gave me this impromptu masterclass on retail lighting. And so now it translated into our house here and how the lighting works and different placement of lighting. And anywhere I go, I'm way more interested in the lighting products they're using, the cameras that they have, what microphone is that. I want to understand the materials and processes and systems that go into creating the experience. Most people are obsessed with absorbing the experience, being part of the experience, and that is tough because I can't really let myself do that
But it's still
anymore.
enjoyable. It's still fun, interesting. But yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I'm the same.
It's a different kind of fun of like,
Yeah.
I wonder how much time they spent figuring that part out, or how many different things did they have to try? Because that's people who are in marketing think that everything that we do is like the first time we did it. It's like that old joke. Is it Leonardo da Vinci? Sketch something for someone, and they're like, "I'm not paying that for that price you want." He's like, "Well, it took me my whole life to learn how to do that."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so inherently, I'm just always curious of how much effort went into that because it didn't just happen. Nothing just happens.
Yeah.
Agreed. Is that iteration number 50 or number 3? Whatever it might be.
Yeah, even when I look at like roller coasters in development, you're like, why is that thing running with no people on it for like 6 months? Don't they know? Like they modeled it on a computer, they built it. They should just work. I don't know why. Why do they have to keep testing it? Why do they have to keep optimizing it? What's?
Can't AI do that now, Kevin?
I mean,
Oh boy,
that's what they say. That's what they say. That's the promise, anyways, right? AI can do it.
I did have that interesting, and we talked about this before. One of my main takeaways from people who have studied and really know AI intimately is that they were mostly disappointed with the AI content at the Builders Show. But I talked to someone else yesterday, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, me and all my friends, like our favorite things were all about the AI." And I was like, "Okay, well, tell me what it is." And again, it went back to like magic tricks. And I'm tripling down on this analogy of what's happening right now with AI, because if you or one of your kids have ever done a magic trick, the thing that really messes up any young magician is to say, "Cool, can you do that again?" And they're like, "Wait, no, hold on. Okay, you leave. I'm gonna go reset up the trick, right? Redo the thing, put the things back in the order they need to go in, because you can't just reproduce the trick." And that's what I kind of want to do with all these examples that people will use as kind of a magic trick, and it is amazing. But if it's so easy and so amazing, I think in the future there should be some rule that says that immediately after you giving a talk, you should have to walk around the corner and let the first two people in line like implement it for them in their company, because it should only take like 5 minutes. You just download the software, you do this thing, give it some data, and 5 minutes later, it should be live.
Nope.
And I think if there was that rule, people would not be doing the same magic trick work that they're doing now.
It's almost like it's a movie trailer for a movie that's not done, like not actually filmed. It's like, oh, we need this peak excitement moment. We need this where it tapers off in emotion. Then this will lead them to want us to watch it. coming soon, June 2025. Like, and then you're like, well, let's watch it now. It looks like it's done, right? It's coming soon. Like, it's gotta be done. There's a whole movie. Actually, no, not at all. It's not done. You can't watch anything. Like, it's not there.
The trailer is there to build excitement. And that part, again, I understand. And then we should be talking about things to build excitement and interest in things that are coming down the line. But then when you start going back to other things we talked about, just making up numbers of this is going to cause a $1 trillion impact on how we build homes. It's like, well, okay. But I just interviewed both John Sicilian Jr. from Sicilian Partners. They call themselves kind of the ERP for land and land development master plan. And then I interviewed Mark Miner again from Hierarch today.
Nice.
And you talk to them and the amount of work that they've been doing for years with teams of incredibly smart engineers and people and just all of the data analysis and prep and hard work that has to go into just like minute incremental improvements in what it is they're offering.
Mm-hmm.
And they've never said it, but if I were them, especially because we don't call ourselves an AI company. We're not, in the business of doing that stuff. But I just have to imagine if you were in the arena, so to speak, doing that all the time, you would just be frustrated as all get out by the kind of questions you'd get asked by people because you know better.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. You ready to get started?
Yeah, let's get started. Get some
Let's
stories
do
going.
this.
Well, welcome to episode 333. I'm Kevin Oak. Is there a form of alliteration that goes with numbers? Is there a term for that? 333.
333.
It's all threes.
It's all threes.
It's not numerology. Anyway, I'm Kevin Oakley, and with me today is Beth Russell and Andrew Peak.
Yay. Clap, 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 clap.
We're
Sound
here.
effects.
We're
And
here.
I did upgrade my soundboard to a Rodecaster Pro 2.
Oh,
It's nice
fancy.
and shiny and has brilliant colors, but I haven't bothered to reload all my sound effects. So we're getting there. We're getting there.
No built-in
Coming
AI.
soon to a
Shoot.
podcast near you.
Yeah. Beth, you want to start out story time?
Yeah. So in kind of relation to what we were saying earlier, looking at different experiences in life a little bit differently as adults and as marketers, we are, as many of you know, prepping for Masters Week to kick off. By the time this drops, we will be about, I guess, a little over halfway through Masters Week, but we're renting out our house this year and our whole neighborhood gets taken over by Mercedes-Benz. And this is our first year, obviously, experiencing it. I sent the team a bunch of images of what it's like to live in our community right now. And essentially, you're living inside a Mercedes-Benz dealership, but to the extreme, because they're renting out houses and labeling houses and all this stuff. And it's really fascinating. But for me, as I drive around, like my fascination isn't just the fact that there's all these crazy cars outside on display and they took over our clubhouse. My fascination is like, okay, what is the ROI? Like, how did they come to build this out? How do they evaluate this year to year? What is the return on the investment that they're getting from this situation? How many of these cars do they actually sell? Like, how do the operations go into it? I'm just fascinated by the entire thing. But moreover, I dug into it. Yep, there's a picture of my clubhouse right now. Here's the interesting part about it. The part that I haven't told many of you. Mercedes actually invested in the development of our neighborhood. So when the neighborhood was like in its early parts of development, apparently the story goes is that Mercedes was looking for a community in the area to call home during the Masters, because if you all don't know about the Masters, they don't have a lot of corporate sponsorships. And so it's a big deal that they are one of their sponsors. And so as they were looking for an area or a neighborhood to invest in, they chose to pair up with our developer, and they helped pay for the amenities within our community in order to become like a partner with our community and have the rights to take over every single year. And from a developer standpoint and a marketing standpoint, I'm like, that is a gold mine. That is amazing. And now we have this huge pool that they put together with a clubhouse. They built, apparently, we're part of the process of building the big pavilion that's attached to our clubhouse. And just from a development standpoint, I find that absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, that is really cool. I've heard of companies doing that more because they need housing for their employees. there's a builder I work with in Frankenmuth, Michigan, who is partnered with a big employer there, partly because they need housing that will makes people want to live there. Like, hey, come
Yeah.
work for us, but you're gonna have to live. We don't know where. Hey, here's a new neighborhood, and so they're partnering on that project. I've heard of that kind of thing, and I have heard of brands like Mercedes-Benz doing this in multifamily. In fact, I think it's in oh shoot, it might be Mercedes actually, apartments or condo tower. Yeah, Mercedes has a tower in Dubai and Miami. Mercedes-Benz Miami is like and I think these are supposed to be places where you drive up and park your car using some crazy contraption. In unique ways, but it's not just Mercedes. Then now it's, I think, Porsche and other companies that getting in on this in these different kind of destination location. But for single family development, like you're talking about, it makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like Google paying, what is it now, $18 billion a year to Apple to be the default search engine.
Yeah, it's a few dollars.
Mhm.
Like, if there is a neighborhood that's going to attract the kind of clientele that you want to not only do business with you, but you want to influence other people like them to do business with you.
Yep.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah. And they, our neighbor rented out their house to Mercedes during the Masters for 2 weeks. So they're kicked out of their house for 2 weeks. And it's for the Mercedes
Bad.
employees that are having to stay here. And they all get golf carts and they get like shuffled to and from. It's like this whole thing. And I think it's fascinating because we can take this as a bigger picture and expand upon it. But it's like, one, the lifestyle that you're trying to sell, like you were just talking about, Kevin. Two, that business to business aspect within marketing and the opportunity that when you figure out who your demo is, the power that it unleashes. We did this in Texas when we were building a community right across the street from an elementary school. Actually, it was like a whole school complex. The superintendent was like, we want to get teachers out here, but there's nowhere for them to live. Let's work together. Let's make a whole thing. And we, put together this whole package. We had all of our events at the schools. And most of the people that, brought in the momentum to that community were the employees, the teachers, the staff of the schools in that area. And we see this all the time. And I feel like people need to really be paying attention to that. Where are they working? Where are they spending their time? Where's the opportunity when it comes to that, when you discover it?
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Andrew?
Well, we'll just continue this whole car theme today. So this is like what, week 4? I don't know. I got the Tesla. We did the car shuffle, both Lindsay and I. So I'm actually like using the Tesla now. There was the whole buying experience, 10 out of 10. It's just simple, but that's what I wanted. Like comparing Tesla to Mercedes, a little bit different market. There's some overlap on certain models, but like, brand, I think a lot is with Mercedes, because if you're buying a brand new Mercedes, you're choosing between Mercedes, Lexus, BMW, Audi, like certain ones. So which one do you belong to? I think we could picture our mind like, what's a typical BMW driver? We could be like, that's who I've seen. Mercedes, maybe this is this. So speaking of demo, I went and charged the Tesla the other day, and I'm like, oh my, this is really, maybe it's just like bad timing. I don't know what it was, but could you guess what the other 7, so there's 8 Tesla drivers backed up and charging, what they all look like?
You?
This is yes. 25 to say late 30s, male, etc. Like kind of going to work. I was sitting there reading a book because I work from home, so I was reading a book that we're going through here at Convert. I'm like, this is really weird. Like, what in the world? There's a Cybertruck next to me. I'm in the Y. There's another Y, then a bunch of 3s all over the place. It's also the closest one to the interstate, so they're likely commuting. I was going the other direction. I was just charging up and heading home. I thought that was really interesting. But what I want to talk about with the story is testing the full self-driving and going through the beta side of that. So long story short, I'm like, how is the world even operating without this? Like, people are out here, like, I'm looking at other cars. I'm like, these people can just like run into me. I mean, I could do that too in the Tesla, but like, there's some barriers, there's some bumpers, right? They're bowling with no bumpers. And I'm like, why? Like, this is so weird. It feels so archaic going in my wife's car, even though it's technically a nicer car as far as the specs and everything goes. But I'm like, this is just so weird. So I imagine once we do have these AI tools that we'll talk about later, it in place and we're using them, we're like, how do we function without this before? Like, what do you mean? Like I could just like accidentally do this? Or if
Yeah.
I like, my attention span goes over there for like half a second, like the car's like and puts them in the right spot. But what's interesting is just how good and bad it is,
Mhm.
the self-driving. Like it needs perimeters, right? It needs like, okay, what's the road? Is it painted like nicely, or is it missing some of the paint lines? And it's trying to figure out like what we're going to do, especially turning, which is really goofy. Like just to sit there, like no hands on the steering wheel, even though they're technically supposed to be on the steering wheel, but no hands on the steering wheel, and it just starts making the corner for you, like low speed, like oh, lights red, making a right hand turn, it's clear to go, whoop, just pulls out. That's super bizarre, like doing that, but it's
Well,
cautious, but it's strange, but it needs the perimeters, just like if we're using anything with AI, like it needs boundaries, it needs to learn, it needs to do that.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
full Fifth Element yet.
No.
okay, there's two things about that I think are super interesting. One is, in your opinion,
Mhm.
do you think it's good enough that it should be just on now? Like,
Ooh.
should it still be in beta?
It should still be in beta, but more so because of the world and not
Yep.
Tesla itself.
Yep.
Like,
Okay.
or
Yeah,
there's,
that's as far that's as
there we
far
go.
that's
It should be in
perfect.
beta.
Because
Mhm.
the problem is, the closer you get to being perfect and ready to go, combined with the trade-off of what happens when it's wrong,
Yeah.
means
Mhm.
that we really could have had some form of full self-driving, at least on freeways,
Yeah.
for years now.
Yeah. Definitely freeways. Yeah.
But death as an alternative outcome uh, means that, well, we got to be really certain that it's perfect. And then getting to perfect is so hard that what they ended up doing with the last version of self-driving is they got rid of all of the training data, where human beings were watching videos and outlining stop signs and telling the system what it was doing. And what they ended up doing is they threw out all of it and they went essentially down a generative AI model saying, just watch video of our best drivers driving.
Mhm.
And now you don't even need to know what it is. It's just, if you see that scenario happening, now you know what to do. So they went from this very prescriptive, outlined, the number of data points are clearly defined and as close to infinite as they can do through just like grunt force, to now
Yeah.
saying, no, you just watch videos of the best drivers doing the best things. And then what the card does now is it uploads video from those drivers every day
Mhm.
of their driving.
Am I
And
one
there's
of
a
those?
there's a machine learning model that looks at kind of outlying situations that don't happen often, but when they do happen, that's weird, never seen that before. And because they have all these cars with cameras on them that are uploading all the data,
Mhm.
they get more outline scenarios than anyone else. Anyway, it's just fascinating that at the end of the day, it's such a hard problem to solve
Oh yeah.
that after they were already at what, like 10 years down the path of using this one method to get there, they're like, nope,
Restart.
throw it out.
Yeah, I noticed the change from that update. Like it just happened, like I think it was like 3 or 4 days ago. But I pretty much I'm on one road 90% of my driving. Prior to the update, there's flashing yellow lights in front of a fire station. I don't know what the law is, so that's weird. I don't know if it takes into account like flashing yellow light means you do X, Y, Z. Everyone
Yeah.
just goes through it, which I think you're supposed to do. You don't stop, you don't slow down, you just go through it. It's not an intersection. It's just the fire station is next to it, so there's a flashing red light. Prior
Yeah.
to that, it would slow down, and it would get kind of confused. And you could watch the screen, and it would be like, oh, it's red, it's yellow. Then it would kind of keep going through. But you're going 50 on the road, never goes down to 30. That car went down 30. That's not good. So now it knows how to do that. But now what it does now, if it slows down if there's slower traffic, and it's much slower to come back up to speed. If we have to go from 50 to 40, now it goes back to 42. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like the slow person now. So I have to give it some gas to go up that way. But there's definitely some weird scenarios where I'm like, it didn't work now and it didn't work before. Like,
Yeah.
to against my neighborhood, I
guess
have to turn right and then turn right again.
my point is that when we talk about other uses for AI, like the robot that's going to take care of our 104-year-old grandma, same thing kind of applies of Like it can't just be good enough. It's got to be perfect,
Mhm.
which that's just the amount of effort to go from 98% done to 100% done is infinite
Yeah.
right
I was
now.
saying infinite. Yeah.
It's
The assist part is where I see it being super cool, or any
Mm-hmm.
AI. So this is the car, and then it's also AI. Like the assist can get us 90% safer, or 90% safer in whatever we're doing. Maybe running Google Ads safer, running this better. Where it just is like, hey, we know your site does not say this word on it whatsoever.
Yeah.
The performance on this is terrible. We're going to just add that as a negative keyword because that makes sense. Like it's not in your website. Your site says nothing about Home Depot. Home Depot means shopping for home improvement projects. Your site sells new homes. We'll never show your website on a Google ad to Home Depot ever again.
Yep.
Google might show it to Home Depot because Home Depot searches, they want money, but another third party would probably come up with something like that, that it learns your website at the same time. That'd be worth paying for.
Yep.
Well, end of my story.
My story time is that, there's the saying, what's old is new again. And
Oh,
a lot of
yeah.
times that's true. We kind of uncover things that we've forgotten to pay attention to, and that it becomes relevant in a new way. But then there's other things that kind of keep trying to become relevant for, I don't understand why. And I think they're just not relevant currently. Like there's this unseen force that keeps trying to bring things back from the dead. Instead of waiting for it to actually be relevant, they're like, it's been a while. Let's just bring that back around. And I don't know if it's people writing book. I don't know what it's from. And this isn't anything personal to anyone. But one of the things that I think we've come back to, someday we'll have AI analyze, so we'll have these exact numbers. This might be the third time we're going to talk about personas on the podcast.
Let's
And
do
I'm
it.
not going to do it super long here, but in today's digital world, I'm talking digital, you are all of the inputs for how the ad platforms are going to work are based upon the outputs of tests. Those tests are educated. You create, again, guardrails. You say, hey, this general area, broader is better in today's world, broader geography, broader targeting of any kind, because then you're going to run not truly infinite, but I'm going to use the word, an infinite number of tests. And when the outcomes of those tests show the type of movement by the customer through their customer journey, or the outcome you want, it feeds that output into the next input, and it creates your persona for you. Like you don't have to define it at all. That's. I'm gonna let Andrew.
Yeah.
You agree with what I'm saying so far? I'm not making anything.
I
crazy
agree.
up?
I agree. I think, can we define persona just for everyone else who might have their idea? Just like as a quick, I found one. I don't know if you agree with it, but a marketing persona is a composite sketch of a key segment of your audience.
Right.
Do you like that
There you go.
definition? Okay, there we go.
Well, I think so, but the way that it ends up getting
No.
translated in all the experiences I've had over the last 20 years is this is our target buyer.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is our target,
There we go.
the profile of our target buyer.
So it's like persona equals target buyer.
And I think when you're trying to create a persona around something that's again, like business to business, to me makes more sense. And I use this
Agreed.
example today on a call with someone, is if you're creating software that is for a purchasing and costing estimator at a home building organization, how old that person is kind of irrelevant. What color hair they have, what kind of dog they own, all this,
Doesn't matter.
the type of radio they listen to or stream, none of that matters. What you're trying to create is a persona, an extraction of what are the inputs and outputs of this person's world? What do they care about? What concerns do they have? What problems can we try to make better for them? Who do they report to? Who reports to them? You're creating this composite sketch of a position within inside of a business so that your business knows how to communicate and target things around that persona of a role. When you're talking about personas in home building, and especially in digital, I think you're really just talking about messaging and content. Those things are influenced by who you think your target buyer profile is. But when it comes to like, are you going to decide to use Google or not use Google based upon the persona that you develop?
Based on the dog breed you have at home.
If you build, you know,
Strange.
2-bedroom townhomes in Columbus, Ohio, are you going to change your keywords based upon the persona you develop?
I don't think so. No.
No.
It really comes down to content and messaging. You know, the
Yeah.
tone of the and the words you're using in copy. The look and feel of the page that you're sending them to, and that once they interact with the ad. But what I keep getting hit with is, how can we either use these platforms to narrow in on the personas that we want? And I'm just tossing a lot of stuff out here, and then you guys can ask me questions
Yeah,
or
this is fun.
add on top of it. But my example was, you might have it. Let's go to the 2-bedroom townhome scenario in downtown Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
Your persona your target buyer might say, I think that's going to be, you know, a single professional. But if a 70-year-old person decides that they're in the market for a 2-bedroom townhome, like the product itself is not age restricted or persona restricted in that sense. Like when you're touring the home, yes, the furnishings communicate something. That would be, I'd put that again in messaging and content, is the furnishings and the colors you painted it. But if someone really wants to live in that area, they don't say to themselves, gosh, I love this floor plan, but this model's decorated like it's for a young person. No, they're like, well, I'll paint the thing the way I want it, or I'll put the hot pink couch in the corner the way I would do it. Like, you're going to make the space your own. The space is the space, I guess is what I'm saying. Bedrooms, baths, space is space in that geography. And I think that's a different component to almost everything else we buy. In fact, maybe everything else we buy outside of like custom yachts or insides of airplanes, like a nail clipper. Like, you don't need a persona for something that clips nails. And I can't personalize the interior of a vehicle easily. So that's where like the persona around, this brings us back to the Mercedes Tesla thing. Like, you're having to make a bunch of decisions that are not easily altered later by the customer. Like, it's a lot of pain if I'm going to redo the interior of my Tesla to a different material, different color. Whereas
I think you're
throwing paint on the wall, not a big deal.
I think you were kind of hinting at, on the extreme ends, maybe there is a persona. Nail clippers that are $1 to $6. What I assume that's what they'll cost. Anybody and everybody. $40, $50, $60, $100 nail clippers, which I'm sure they make. That's probably a very unique person.
Yeah.
And they're probably XYZ, but it's still, you probably take a sample of those people that buy that and you're like, well, it's kind of everybody in the world still. Like, it's still, but maybe it's a little bit more narrow. I think about the
But it would
community that really
inform,
wants-
like, for the $150 nail clipper, okay, we're going to try to get an ad in Vogue, a print
Yeah.
ad. We're going to try to do
What
does it
these
look like
other
and
things.
feel
But
like?
when it comes to Meta and Google, my general statement still would be that there's very little or nothing different you're going to change in how we would build out the structure of those ads to target people. It would be boiled down to a change in messaging and content.
Yeah.
Creative.
Agreed. So it's
And-
almost, go ahead, Beth.
The issue is that so many of these people are defining that persona based off of assumptions, or they're defining the persona based off of what they know in the market versus actually collecting data and doing the work ahead of time to, like we've talked about before, perform market research and define that demographic, who their target demographic is, through hard-hitting evidence, or defining that demographic post-release to collect the data and discover who it is that's actually purchasing from them, i.e. the conversation we had earlier where it's like, oh, everyone who's buying here works at XYZ or is commuting here. And then using that information that you gather to then tailor your messaging and tailor your content to that particular demographic. But if you define that persona far too early, what you're going to do is you're going to shut out people that might actually be interested.
And that's the beauty of pre-sale without fail process, or any pre-sale process. The number of times that I've heard we have 400, 800, thousands of people on our interest list. And are we trying to figure out who these people are and what similarities they have and why they're interested and what makes them tick? And that's why, like, it's still, I guess we just have to keep repeating it over and over again. But you survey those people, you talk to those people. You're not, yes, you're not priming them to purchase tomorrow if you're still
Yeah.
months away from release.
Mhm.
But there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can and should be learning from them. Even we did a project one time in Pittsburgh that was unlike any we'd ever done before. And so out of that interest list, we would pick groups of 15 to 20 people and just go have lunch with the president, the COO, and myself, and just ask them questions
Yeah.
over a catered lunch. And it was super insightful. They felt incredibly important because they felt like they were, giving us input on what the community should look and feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, we're just we're keep running for this. Well, I just need more leads. Just give me 5,000 more leads.
Yeah. I had that conversation with a builder today, actually, about a community that was lagging. And it's like, okay, where's the hesitation? What are the obstacles? The obstacles are the location. Okay. For the people that have bought and considered it, why? And X, Y, Z about it. Okay. On your website, tell that story. That's what you need to do.
Another way that I talked about it
Messaging.
today, again, we don't do sales training for on-site salespeople. We never will. But one of the builders we work with, it's a really, really small team. So it's typically the owner and the head of sales and they're one other salesperson. And we were talking, I said they had amazing first quarter sales results, small market, and no nationals around. And I said, hey, what are some of the things that surprised you about all these buyers that you've had in this first quarter? Anything that kind of stands out to you? And they started listing out what things that they found interesting or wouldn't have guessed about the buyers in today's market. And I said, what's interesting is you can take that exercise, and if it's surprising you, an expert in your market, in your profile, you're going to be able to do these magic tricks for your customers. You say, hey, are you concerned about X, Y, and Z? Yeah. How did you know? Like there's
Magic.
this
Yeah.
constant surprise as humans. Not me, because I'm a humanoid robot, as we like to say. But a lot of humans are constantly like, man, I just feel so much better knowing that someone else is struggling with this, or that I'm not the only. You're never the only one.
Mm-hmm.
But people feel like that. And so using that kind of input in that data, that market research of you being an expert and seeing patterns, the next person who walks in the door, if you get a sense that this would be something interesting, like you get to, if it was surprising to you, it's really going to be surprising to them that you're calling that out or mentioning that thing.
I think a really
Agreed.
great case study for this is people who are struggling in the military markets. And they're like, how do we reach them? How do we reach them? We have a discount. We have like special incentives. And I tell them, you speak their language. You talk about the things that are concerning to them. I sold in a community that was predominantly military. And the conversations I had, I used their language. I said PCS. I said,
Get those acronyms out. Get them out.
Start spitting out, learn the acronyms, learn the VA loan process. And then also start talking about like investments. Can you rent this property when you leave in 2 years or 3 years or however many years it is? And start having those conversations with them. And that provides way more sustenance that will help them stay on the hook than a free fridge. And it's that same, just like a super like case study look at of how you can apply that.
Exactly. I mean, the really tangible example, and I don't know what it is for the military, but if you're walking through a home as a salesperson, if 40 of your last 50 homes had white kitchens in it, you can just ask the question, how do you feel about white kitchens? Because one way or the other, that's going to be a lightning rod of, oh my gosh, I love it. In which case you have all this commonality and be like, yeah, all of our customers love it. We've done 40 different ones in the last, or if they say, man, I hate it, it's going to be out of fashion, be like, hey, I know it's really popular right now, but we can personalize something for you. Like it's going to resonate, I guess is my point. And so for you, if you know that your customer is a military buyer, you need to say like, hey, was it PCS season? Whatever, is that what it's
Mhm.
called?
Yeah.
Like stressful, isn't it?
Good
Or
job, Kevin.
I've heard it's stressful. I don't know. You're just being relatable. Again, making
Yeah.
that connection.
It's going back to what Elena Money Garmin has preached at Summit last year, which is they just want to be seen and heard. You recognize that you know who they are and meet them in the middle and build that relationship. And then all of a sudden that trust is just there naturally and it
Yep.
works.
Yep. All right, on to the news. By the way, personas
The
might
news.
become relevant again in the future. Don't at me or send me a hate mail. It just when it's time to be relevant again, then we should bring it back. But don't
Wait, I
force
want
things that are old and irrelevant to try to be relevant.
got
I
one
want to
more.
encourage people to have Twitter wars with you. It's really entertaining.
Oh, it is really entertaining.
It
I might
is.
make you cry, just warning, but it's entertaining.
Crying's part of the human experience, so
Tears of joy.
we're good.
It'll be tears of joy. First up on the news, we had the public launch of tickets for the
Ooh,
Online Sales and
yeah.
Marketing Summit.
Chicago.
As we're recording this, it's been a day since the launch, but we already have well over 200 tickets sold. We're on the way to
Nice.
selling out. Someone emailed us today and said, hey, are you all doing any discounts or incentives or like buy one, get one or anything? We're like, no, we're clearly going to be on the road to sell it again. We don't need to give things away for free. Last year, we did it proactively because we thought last year was going to be tougher than it ended up being because we, launch early. We thought, hey, in the fall, it might be tough. We want to do something a little bit different, but we're back to normal and it'll be sold out soon. So public launch is on. Make sure you go ahead and grab your tickets while they're available. Every year, it's the only selling part that I'll do for the whole year on this podcast. Every year, we get emails the month before, the weeks before, sometimes 4 days before, saying, oh my gosh, I really want to go. Do you have any extra tickets? And we have to say, no, we don't. Like every year we have people who can't come, who want to come last minute. So go grab them.
And
Okay.
don't
All right.
wait on approval. Like, I just want to say that because I really
Ooh, what
wish
is
that
this?
Yes.
I just
I
wish
like it.
that
I like it. Go.
as I was in the seat, I would have had this conversation more with people around me, but like invest in yourself and invest in your career. And if you haven't done something, whether it be our summit or something else, because you're waiting on approval from someone else, invest in
Okay.
yourself.
So just because I don't want to get sued or what, like Beth is not necessarily saying charge your company credit card without
Right.
asking.
No,
Pay
I'm
for
not saying
yourself.
that.
It's
Invest
worth.
in yourself
But
means
what she
you
is
pay
saying
for
is
it.
either through personal experience of those of us on today's episode, or from talking to people who went last year or the year before, who the initial reaction was, we don't send people to conferences. We don't like people to learn things outside for some, whatever it was. And the person's reaction was, cool, I'll just, no hard feelings. I'm just going to take some vacation time and I'm going to go myself and I'll let you all know what I learn. And then surprisingly or not surprisingly, the people come around and say, you know what, if you're going anyway, then it's all right. Like thumbs up. We're good.
Okay, adding on to that, it's in Chicago, which is worth, like you said, vacation. It's not, it's intense. You'll be learning the whole entire time. But after 5, 6 o'clock, like you're in Chicago, like have fun. I much prefer it compared to Dallas, but we go back and forth. And if you're going to pick one event to do, I'm biased, but you could ask anyone who's been to any other years what their opinion is as far as if you had to pick between this, and this, and you're in marketing, online sales.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, someone just did that on LinkedIn. It was pretty funny.
Okay, perfect.
It was kind of like the default question was, other than the Online Sales and Marketing Summit, what is like another must attend event that we could try? Which my answer was PCBC, and no one else answered. I was like, everyone else just thumbs up, or I was like,
yeah, it's
okay, interesting. Anyway, moving on to our first article of the week from doyouconvert.com and our very own Jesse Suggs. Always assume the appropriate appointment. And kind of like old school AIM days, AOL Instant Messenger, like there's double asterisks around appropriate, because I guess we can't bold on our website. I don't know what that's about. But anyway,
we said it appropriate, so
I like it.
You did it. I like it. means
It's really
something.
focused around this little graphic here, which I'll share on the screen and I'll read for those of you listening.
Yeah,
The
I like
online
that.
sales call path is prepare, open, qualify, assume, and then next step. Those are the 5 steps of the online sales call path.
POKN. POKN.
And so Jesse's really zeroing in on always assume the appointment, but make sure it's the appropriate next step before we do.
I love this because I think it ties back to confidence. Like if you go into that conversation assuming that the appointment's not going to happen or hesitant or lacking confidence that you're going to be able to get that appointment and or sale for on-site sales, you're not going to get it. You're not going to ask for it. You're not going to push or, lead them in that direction. But this is all about leading them down the funnel, leading them towards the next step, which is the appointment. And so you have to assume it's going to happen and lead them in that direction through providing really good information and telling the story of your builder. So that confidence, it rubs off. And it's really important that you go into that with a strong amount of confidence so people feel that they are talking to the right person and they feel confident themselves in taking that appropriate next step.
Yep. I like this part where she says, adopt an assumptive approach in your language, gently guiding the conversation towards scheduling an appointment. Even if the customer isn't ready to commit, they'll recognize you as their point of contact for when the time is right. And what that looks like is when there's questions that you can't answer or questions that would be difficult to answer because there's so many optional outcomes or too much information to try to convey in a phone call. So that's a great question. That's one of the reasons we really encourage scheduling private appointments where you can meet with the expert, have the time to get the insight on that. So that sounds like something that's interested you. No, not now. But again, it's just, I guess the theme is bumper bowls. Don't use that as the show title though, Olivia. Bumper bowling. It's like you're giving those guidelines of where essentially in as comfortable a way as possible, you're helping them understand that kind of the next step is that appointment and that you're the person who can schedule it for them.
Not to bring up stupid Tesla again, but the next steps when you're buying one. Like Beth, I don't know if you remember, like you pick one out and you download the app, like they very clearly tell you what the next steps are. You don't need to talk to a human because it's all outlined. You go to a typical dealership and it's like, oh, great. Here's 3 people looking at me that are sitting outside getting sunburned, waiting for me I'm going to get pounced on. Right. So I think part of this, and I'm sure like great OSCs who have really good appointment rates, like they educate like, hey, just, this is my role here. Here's the next steps. Boom, 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 boom. You have the appointment. Not like you could have an appointment, but like you'll talk to me. We'll figure out if you like the community. You'll have the next step. You'll have an appointment with someone who's on site. They could talk specific pricing details, but so there's assumptiveness right there. Just you will have the next appointment. But it really fits that graphic that Kevin brought up as far as like, it says online sales path, but it's kind of like, that's like it's broken down when it's the phone call, the initial phone call that someone is talking to, interested in the home.
Yeah, okay, but again, because trade-offs are important, I think it's insightful to be aware that what Tesla is doing is creating a non-hybrid path. They're actually they're creating clear next steps by eliminating a whole bunch of potential next steps. There's only one way to buy a Tesla from Tesla. Now, does that mean that there's trade-offs of people who say, I don't want to go through the website. There are weird people, Andrew, of all types. Someone's feeling heard and seen right now, Beth. There's someone who likes going to dealerships and their name is Mike Lyon. Like he loves
sit there all day.
It's a sport for him. You like it too, Beth?
I love negotiating.
You put a problem.
It's so much fun.
Go to a flea market or go to a garage sale if you want to get that.
So my point is just that we think of these things as just the default. Like this is just how Teslas are purchased, but someone has thought through and said, we are going to forego sales of a certain nature. Yes, there are rules and restrictions about dealerships and blah, blah, blah. I'm not even going down that road. They're intentionally not selling cars a certain way in favor of that simplicity, which is still not simple. Again, I met the guy whose job was to make sure that once you bought a Tesla, everything flowed. And he had a team, I think he said, of 110 people whose job is just emailing, communicating, texting, calling, filling in all the gaps that their automated system still doesn't do 100% of the time.
Yeah. If you do have questions, you're like, what do I do?
Yeah, that's how I was.
But everything in there, you're like, yeah, it's interesting. But you know the next steps is the intention. Like you clearly know what to do. I think with home buying, I don't think people I think most don't know what the steps are. Like, hey, I think I'm interested in this home. Like, is it for
Mhm.
sale? Do I pick this one? Like, how's this work?
Okay, Andrew, saying that,
Oh,
relay this to marketing because I think too
it's
many
on
times
us.
marketers assume that like the person is interested, that the person knows everything about the community,
Oh,
knows
yeah.
exactly what they want, knows the name of the floor plan, and they set up their website according to this assumption that people know. And I feel like what we have
Oh,
to do on the marketing
yeah.
side is we have to flip it. We have to assume that they don't
Flip
know.
it, pop it. Yep.
And I've had this conversation a lot with marketers recently of like, you don't have an awareness problem. They're aware that this community exists.
Yeah.
What you have is a consideration problem because they're not considering it because they don't, you're just assuming that once they see it, they're going to want it.
Yeah.
And that's not
That's
what's
a-
happening.
Again, my example would be if, and I've used this a lot, so sorry, but it's still the best one I can think of, is Apple's website. There is a store
I'm going there right
portion
now.
and there is a non-store portion. And Apple could easily just say, if you go to apple.com, you're in the store portion and you're picking out your iPhone and you're adding to cart. And that's all. In theory, that's all they need because they run all these ads. Everyone knows what an iPhone is. But
Mhm.
no, they're investing all this time, energy, and resources on content. So when I click on the iPhone 15 Pro on their website, there is like a seemingly infinite amount of scrolling that I can do telling me about all the amazing features of the iPhone that has nothing to do with that checkout and add to cart experience. Nothing.
I'm looking at it now.
And
It's
the number of
very,
times that we're on a call with a builder and they reference a community or a floor plan, and I'm like, you need to tell me because your website doesn't. Kind of almost inverse. It doesn't let me go to that. Like I have to pick a division first. Well, which city is that division in? Like,
Mhm.
how is the consumer supposed to know how you set up your company?
Mhm.
You're right.
You're on
I'm
the
looking at
website,
this.
Andrew.
Yeah, I'm looking at now. Is it Tesla or Tesla? I've asked like 20 people this and no one agrees. I think Tesla
I
is
say Tesla.
correct. I think
Well,
it's
Nikola Tesla is the man,
that's
right? So I don't.
like it's more of a
Tesla.
but it's almost the same. Like you go to buy and then on Tesla's website, you
Yeah.
have the right hand column if you're on a desktop where you have the options. But to learn about the options, you're really on a different spot, which they could then have a better user experience on the website. Much bigger pictures. They don't have to worry about like, well, they need to pick the option here. Like separates the two, which would be
Mhm.
interesting to have that with a builder site. What would that look like? Well, that's what we were promised years ago: shop online, buy online, and that's we know how that turned out. That's not quite there.
Yeah, for those of you watching, I'm pulling up the site right now, and it starts with the titanium, and there's animations, and at each one of these things, I can go deeper in and learn more about the design and display than even what that initial screen shows, and I can go way down the rabbit hole and see the phone breaking
Mhm.
apart and
Yeah,
all the different aspects of it. But if I want to go buy an iPhone, I've got to click the buy button, which now takes me into a very streamlined. You have minimal
Mhm.
choices. There's someone there to help you make this one choice. There's a smiling face here of someone who can help me decide if I need a Pro or a Pro Max as my first decision.
Mhm.
And again, I think that's the other part that we're all missing, or most people are missing, is that we're going to give consumers more and more tools to self-select, self-design, self-purchase. That's cool. It will only create more need for more help and more assistance with those people.
That's a good point because I think that where the clear next step that we struggle with a little bit, and we've talked about this in terms of our recommendations for calls to action on your site, is that you have to meet the buyer where they are. And the clear
Sure.
next step for them might be questions and further explanation. It might be, okay, I've educated myself enough and I want to take a
Yeah.
tour. And so like there has to be a little bit of gray in the boundaries that we're setting to meet the customer where they are in terms of this very highly emotional purchase. But there still needs to be this assumption that they haven't considered you yet, and you need to present them with enough information that they're ready to take whatever that next step is for them.
Like when you made your choices, Andrew, I think there's 5 or 6 choices total when you're buying a car from Tesla. How long did you spend thinking about each one of those choices, would you say?
My biggest choice was, so I went with the Tesla Y, which is like the crossover looking one. Was either going performance or the extended range. So that was really the biggest choice. Everything else was like, well, if you pick performance, you get the big rims, you get this whole package, which is a bunch of other choices you could add on. But really, at the end of the day, you pick the 3 choices, and that kind of puts you in like, well, here's what you probably are going to get, unless you want to a la carte different changes, and then you might as well get this one. So like, hey, you want the gourmet kitchen or whatever, or just get this package, and it's actually lower cost because the way we do it is it's significantly easier for us. So I did all the research on performance versus extended range. And after that, like there's 5 paint colors.
Yeah.
3 of them are no goes. And so there's this one, and then it was interior color, black or the white.
My point is that at the end of the day, anyone could download an Autodesk kind of piece of software and draw their house from beginning to end. Anyone could download Adobe Photoshop and edit their photos the way that they want. And yet there is this fear that if we give consumers all this information, that they're not going to need us. So like there's 2 kind of connected but directionally different wrong assumptions. One is consumers aren't going to need us at all. This isn't going to be good because they'll just decide they don't want to buy with us because they're going to see one field being priced $10 higher than the competition. They're going to say, forget it, I'm buying from someone else. These people are overcharging me. That's unlikely to happen. And the other one is that they're not going to need help. They're going to need more help. Like if my parents downloaded Photoshop to try to do a simple edit of the sky, I promise you, they're calling me way faster than if they didn't.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Where are we anyway?
I don't know, but that was great.
I don't know. That was from the appointment.
The appropriate appointment. Okay. I don't know how we got there, but that was fun.
Man,
Next up from wired.com, how an iPhone powered by Google's Gemini AI might work. So Siri sucks. Let's just start with that, right? Siri's useless. Like notoriously probably the least helpful of all of the voice powered AI tools out there. So that's kind of the easiest thing that could happen to make the next iPhone worth getting is if they said, hey, there's this special chip just for AI, only on the iPhone 16. It makes our voice assistant smart. And in this case, the article is speculating about how Apple may be outsourcing some of this work to Gemini. And there's been a lot of conversations. I'm just trying to set up why I thought this was interesting for discussion. Some people look at that and they go, wait a minute, why would Apple outsource AI to Google? First of all, Gemini has had this not great rollout. It keeps like tripping over itself in getting things not correct for lots of different reasons. And then it's so like core, you know, like could you imagine, let's just say Pulte saying, hey, we've decided to outsource all of our architecture and drafting to Toll Brothers. Like it seems pretty central to something that you wouldn't want to do with a competitor like Google, who has more phones with their operating system on it than yours does in the world. Anyway, that's one take. The other take is, hey, this is actually genius because the most important part for Apple is that they control the phone and access to the data on the phone. And so they could use whatever AI system they want to process that. They have the most, I'm going to use the word first party data available on our lives if we own an iPhone. The calendar, the camera, the text messages, everything, all the apps you're using. And so I want to talk about this more broadly, but then kind of secondarily, I just want to use this as an analogy to the first party data that builders have that we're still not utilizing or even having a vision for how to use. But first of all, do we think it's smart for Apple to potentially partner with Google? Is it a mistake? Is it
I
just
think so. I think
fake news?
it's, if you dumb it down to like, oh, change it to like Apple allows Google Suite on their devices, Google Calendar, Gmail. We'd be like, well, they better. Like, that's what they should be doing. And yeah, this is different because it replaces Siri, but who uses Siri other than like Siri, set a reminder and at 5:30 to do this? Like, really, it's dumb because that's all it's used for. Look, it just did it. Dumb. But I don't. That's so something will happen at 5:30 on my end. So I think it's like no one uses it for anything. So if Gemini is going to be the leading one, they should, and they kind of better put it on their phone to be available. Otherwise, that would then be a competitive advantage for Android, switching to Android from an Apple device, which I don't think people like. I don't know who switches from
I'm
one to the
super
other
tempted.
in
The
2024.
the
Oh yeah,
Samsung Ultra 20, whatever it is, man, that thing has like some crazy cool cameras. The photo editing built into it's way better than the iPhone. The pictures even look better. It's faster.
I wonder
I
if
don't-
you're
I mean-
what color's your text though? Like in a group chat, like do you ruin the group
Right. Well,
chat?
that's why
I'm
the
just kidding.
FCC is suing Apple.
They
Hopefully
should.
they'll get that part fixed. But yeah, I'm not, but it's tempting. So I think it is. I mean, again, I don't want to drive a Tesla per se, but if self-driving like becomes ubiquitous and they do it better, I would switch because of that. So functionality at some point does, I mean, think about Hyundai Genesis, like the fact that people are paying $60,000 plus for a Hyundai luxury car. Like it's because ultimately the functionality and performance and look and feel was good enough to trump the moat that other car brands had in the luxury space for a certain number of people.
Yeah, and they hide the Hyundai name, even though it's on the same lot. But like, it's like Genesis versus Mercedes, but it was Hyundai Genesis, and then they try to so maybe Android makes a Gemini, not Android. Google makes a Gemini phone eventually, and so it's not Google.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new brand.
Beth, any
But
thoughts?
I think it's good.
Well, my initial thing is from the consumer standpoint. And when it comes to AI, AI is all learning. If more people join forces, does that mean it can learn faster and develop faster? So, like, what does that mean for consumer usage? And then how does that then pour into what Andrew and you were just talking about in regards to what becomes the norm and the expectation from a consumer? Because on the flip side, like, I agree, Kevin, where I've been tempted by other Android phones and the certain features that they have, but then I feel pigeonholed by certain features of my iPhone that I'm comfortable with and that I love, like Andrew said. But then when like it comes to my car that I have, what the version I have has Apple CarPlay, and then they switched to Google's version, and I was like, I don't want it because I want my Apple CarPlay. And
Yeah.
so you have to, I don't know. It's fascinating to see what would end up
That's where
the
I
domino
think is
effect.
if I'm Tim Cook, what I would be trying to do is find someone else to again power that, because they can keep developing their own AI platform while this is happening. But for now, you need this kind of thin slice of AI to use all the first party data on the phone to do things that are again magical for the consumer. But it's really 3 layers. And for those of you not watching, sorry. But I think the top layer is Siri. The look and the sound of that voice AI that I don't want to repeat too many times in case it's causing issues for everybody is the layer that's interacting with the consumer. And it doesn't mean that kind of a hidden Gemini layer isn't making Siri actually smart. That's how I'd be trying to play this if I'm them, is I'm trying to find someone to make Siri smarter, to jumpstart that for me.
Yeah.
And then
like a Siri powered by Gemini or something.
Yeah, but part of my deal would be like, hey, we'll give you some type of discount on making Google the default search engine if you make us not have to put powered by Gemini. It's just the way better Siri.
No, it's smart.
Makes sense.
But now I want to pivot to first party data of all of the interactions with a consumer that home builders have. And then folks like Riot Technologies, who you're going to hear more about, and they're partner at this year's summit. Brian McCarthy from Abrazo Homes is one of the co-founders there.
Nice.
Looking at the whole house as a living, breathing platform, and all of the data that has an opportunity to become first party for the builder. I mean, I'm having conversations with companies in prop tech space and data providers now about, the ability to get paid for data that you have. And builders just have, I just think it's not just first party data of they went to our website, but where they are in the CRM, what did they choose to purchase? Every piece and part of this is kind of that differentiated piece. I think we talked one time too about, you got to be careful to not misunderstand what I'm saying, is that data alone, if you're using a GPT that's trained on kind of the web. So like if you use OpenAI's AI system or Gemini or anything else that's kind of generically programmed and trained, your small amount of incremental data that's unique to you isn't going to like move the needle sufficiently. And in fact, we talked, I think, about the $10 million investment by Bloomberg and their own private GPT that ended up being not as good as GPT-4. So I'm not saying that it's like your ace in the hole is to have this proprietary data that other people don't have. But what I'm saying is you're the only ones who can use it, or you can choose to sell it and license it. And I just don't think people are. My conversation with John, which you'll hear, John Sicilian Jr., was, why don't more larger builders have data analysts in their company like right now? Just going in all of the triplicate form boxes in storage and getting that information in a data lake and in the cloud to be able to be used by a system in the future. Because we're going to have this collision of, we're finally ready to use AI for something. Oh, wait, we don't have any of our data ready for it to look at.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right. Last up, welcome to the AI gadget era from The Verge. Humane, Rabbit, Brilliant, Meta, and countless other companies are just about to launch AI-first gadgets. AI hardware may not be as big as the smartphone, but it's going to be big. And first off, Brilliant? They mean, oh, okay. This is a different company. I thought it meant my light switches in my house are from Brilliant, but different Brilliant. All right. Which one of these objects in this article was most intriguing to each of you?
So I looked at Humane and Rabbit. Kind of already understood.
Let's just define them real quick for everyone listening. Humane is the pin like thing that you wear. It's like a Star Trek. What are those things called?
Essentially, the little, I don't know what that transponder. I don't even know.
Yeah,
something.
The Star Trek symbol that you wear on the outside of your clothes.
There we go. And then the other one was like a weird phone. Like I feel like I use this reference all the time. Tom Hanks in the movie Big, he's in the conference room. He's like, I don't get it. They're talking about a building that turns into a robot. It's like, it's a building. What do you mean it's a building? Like this. So I watched the video on Humane, and she's like, and she touches it, and it goes doo-doo, like it's listening to her. She's like, what's that dessert restaurant that uses bananas for their ice cream or something like that? And then she talks, which was perfect because it takes like 5 seconds. And so she's talking, explaining, and it's like, that is this. I'm like, can I just type in, hey, Gemini, hey, whatever, like restaurant New York, blah, 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 the same exact thing. So I'm like, okay, maybe there's something I'm missing. And she kept going. I'm like, I don't want to wear this around my chest or have it useful. Isn't this already in my pocket? Then the Humane has a phone, has a cool little wheel that's you scroll around with. I'm like, I don't get it. I think maybe they're just not selling it well or marketing it well, or I'm just missing it, or I'm like, I don't want a second device and I have that bias. And I'm like, my phone should do this. My phone should do this. My phone should do this. My phone, my personal device, maybe it needs a better name, because they're like Apple and Google own the smartphones. Like, well, it's more than just a smartphone. Maybe this is your AI companion or whatever name you want to have it. This is my AI gadget. To have another thing on me would be terrible. We're all walking around the builder show with our little Humanes on our chest. It's like, what time am I meeting Kevin today? It's like, it looks up the data on your phone or your Google account to find that information, which is on your phone. What time are you meeting with Kevin today? 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Maybe
I went
I'm
the
missing
same-
something.
No, I went the same direction as you, where it's like, I don't want the gadgets. I'm not, just like I don't want the whole, what is
Like
it? The
wearable?
Apple,
Like-
what are they called?
Oh, Vision Pro.
Yeah, the Vision Pros. I don't want that. I have no, I have
Hey,
zero.
you just reminded almost everyone listening that that even exists, by the way,
Yeah.
which is
I know,
my
right?
smart aleck way of saying, I told you it wasn't going to change everything. How many of you, have you seen people walking around with it last week?
No.
I only saw people on videos making fun of it,
Yeah.
walking
Like,
around with it.
I have
Like-
zero interest in that or any of these gadgets, honestly. Where my brain went with it is the exact same thing you just said, Andrew, of like, this is my AI companion. I want to be able to scan something in real life or point my phone like a QR code in a TV or on a TV, whatever, or in real life in a model home, scan a couch and say, here's a dupe and here's the actual couch. Go ahead and buy it.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, wearables, like glasses, is where I see it because that makes sense. Whether it's augmented or it takes pictures, whatever it may be,
Freaks me out.
it does freak you out. But like to be able to like, so let's say I have on here and I don't know, it knows that you're Beth and it knows that that's Kevin, and I got my glasses on, or I'm driving down the road and whatever. Like, oh, I had no idea that restaurant that looks like a dump is actually 4.9 out of 5, and it's open till
Mhm.
10, and has these top 5 dishes, and oh, that is on Instagram, and there's been 20,000 likes on it, and it went viral. I should probably go there. So kind of
I think
discovery.
Okay, discovery. That's it right there, Andrew, because I think what the problem is on the builder side is that we erase what we've done from the internet and we no longer become discoverable. But the builders that are keeping themselves like their previous communities, their previous homes live and searchable. So that way, if you're in a community, you search it, it still associates it with a certain builder. Those are the ones who are going
Yeah.
to win out in the end. Because then if the virtual reality glasses or the wearables, or even me being able to scan a house that I like and find out what paint color, what builder built it, all of that information, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Here's my concern, and they did a really good job, I think, talking about this, is all of these additional devices have to kind of dumb down the input.
Yeah.
Because we're not moving our phone, touching something. And in some ways, yeah. So like if you're just going to talk or you're just going to look at something, there's a whole set of other problems about oversimplifying the interaction. So just take a second to read this paragraph. But obviously the AI first approach brings its own set of challenges, starting with the whole AI is not yet very good or reliable thing, which is kind of a big deal. But once we're past all that, the simplicity by abstraction can actually turn into confusion. What if I text Anna in multiple places? Like Carla Tootin, I'm talking to you. I'll get a Facebook message, an Instagram chat, a real text
Slack,
message, and a
Gmail.
Slack message from her within like a 10-minute period.
It's her favorite.
So when I say, hey, tell Carla blah, blah, blah to my smart device, how does it know which one to go to, which one I want it to go to? Because the most recent one might not be the one I want. What if I listen to podcasts in Pocket Cast, which is the best podcast app by far, music and Spotify, and audiobooks and Audible, and I have accounts with a bunch of other music services I never even use? What if the closest 4-star coffee shop is a Starbucks, and I hate Starbucks?
Yeah, there you go.
If I tell my AI device to buy something, which card will it use? Is it going to use the business card, personal card, default card? What retailer does it pick to buy it from? How fast will it ship?
Yep.
Automation requires trust, and we don't yet have many reasons to trust AI.
There's your TED Talk.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah, or I forgot who wrote this, but yeah, there's the problem. There's a challenge right there.
Well, that's why, I mean, again, Alexa was supposed to solve all this. We were supposed to be buying. And again, there are articles that I have screenshots of that I still use in keynote talks where it said, like, within the next 4 years, 20% of everything we buy will be from voice. Voice search is the new SEO. Like all this bananas.
nope.
It is bananas.
It's just not that easy. All right. What do we love? What do we hate this week, folks, to round out the show?
Ooh, 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 ooh.
The O's are back.
What does that mean?
O's are back.
The
It's a
Orioles.
I want to know,
baseball.
how does the other
How do
day
you get
my
into baseball?
son
I don't
begged
know.
me to turn on an MLB game because he'd never seen one on TV. And even he knew, he's like, as I'm turning the channel to the show, he goes, Dad, you know why no one watches baseball anymore? I go, why, bud? He goes, because it's really slow. And
It's
then he watched
faster
it.
now.
he watched it for 2 minutes and he was like, all right, cool. I've seen it now. Find something else.
It is
So
faster.
how do you, why? There's got to be a backstory to why you like baseball.
Yeah.
I grew up watching baseball, going to Camden Yards, which is one of the most, if not the most iconic, in my opinion, baseball fields in the nation. And I just love it. So it's very nostalgic for me.
Nostalgic.
And-
Okay.
And then my husband got really into it recently, into it, if you will. And now my kids are super into it and they are collecting baseball cards. and
Generational then.
it's an experience that, and like we watch every game that we can watch.
Will you be sad when it like
Okay.
stops existing in like 10 years? Because no one watches baseball. I'm
There's
just
too much
kidding.
government money buying
just kidding.
stadiums and building them.
I
They
couldn't
do
help
watch
myself.
it. Okay. Just come to Baltimore. Come to Baltimore. I will take the boys with me. Give me the Oakley boys. We're gonna go hang out.
Now, what about, would you rather go to an O game or like the Savannah Bananas?
Orioles.
Whatever league they're in.
I don't even know what that is, Andrew.
Savannah Bananas are like a fun.
It's like the whole league is like it, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they're like the big popular one.
No, I would
It's
rather
like
go
the
to the Orioles game.
Globetrotters. Is that what you're talking about for baseball or what?
There we go. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Except it's entertainment. Just go on TikTok or Instagram, whatever, Savannah Bananas. You'll be like, this is weird and wild.
Like
And
a comedy show.
like, is this a show? Like, is this a game? Like, I don't even understand. Like, it makes baseball not boring. But I agree with your son, Kevin. I'm like, baseball. There's no like climactic moments unless you're into it. Like if you're a guest and you're like, oh, I want to go, you're like, cool. I don't know. Like versus like hockey
I
is-
mean,
it's fast
there's
paced,
there's reasons people like it.
violent, whatever.
You guys are breaking
It's-
my heart.
I don't
They're
know,
gonna
man.
have to do. No, yeah. I mean, watching a baseball game on Apple Vision Pro, where like I am the pitcher, or like I could switch to like
Yeah,
watching the
see.
game from like I am the catcher.
Or
that
why
might
is there
be
not the
interesting. No,
cameras
I
like
don't
they
want
have in
that.
football where it's like they fly down on like on the cables and wires and they're like
No, you guys just need to listen
you
to
fly
Kevin
with the ball.
Brown announcing an Orioles game. He just did.
Okay.
Here's some
McMahon-
bias in the voice. I mean,
I'm asking
You're
Google,
killing
how
me.
old is baseball? So
463 years
from
old.
the 18th century. Okay, so your thing you love is a game that's hundreds of years old.
My other favorite sports are hockey and wrestling. So I
Okay,
mean,
well that makes
Hockey?
sense. Hockey can only really be watched.
in
in
person,
Wrestling,
amazing.
you were a wrestling manager
hmm
in college.
Wait. Are we talking like WWE wrestling or
No, like
wrestling?
collegiate and Olympic
Oh, okay.
wrestling. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah,
Andrew, what
I
do
don't
you
know. Ooh,
I am
well-
glad for you, Beth, because I think it's fun to watch you. I like watching people enjoy the things they enjoy.
people enjoy
I'm
things.
telling you,
fun.
send the boys. We'll go to a game.
Send the
I'll
boys.
take them to Camden Yards.
They've
I
been
think
to
she
baseball
offered.
games.
I think she
They
offered a
just-
week. You could send them for a week.
Send them for a
That's
week.
what she said.
Hey,
Sounds good. They love
They
baseball.
had a blast with Berkeley, so they'll have fun.
There we
Yeah.
go. Oh man, favorites. It's I would say the car, the Tesla. It's apart from all the nerdy tech stuff, like it's truly fun to drive for whatever reason. Like
Yeah.
it's maybe because it's smaller. I'm used to a big truck where I have to like actually think about where I'm turning. You get used to it, of course. Like, oh, if I'm in the Starbucks line, I have to be like this, wide turns, all this stuff. And this is just like, and you just go in.
Zippy.
I don't have keys. I mean, you have a key, but like I just carry my phone on me now. I don't have keys to carry. So like I'm pretty much like I just walk out the door, get in the car, walk away from the car. Like it's weird. So it's
Just
it's
don't
reduced.
leave your wife's car unlocked like my husband does.
Okay, I won't do that. I will not do that. I only have her key, my key to her car. I don't even, it's hanging up somewhere. Like I haven't touched it. So yeah, it's reduced all the. I mean, there's like the friction, I guess, of using it, but like apart from that, like you just kind of like go based on how I drive.
Nice. My favorite is a YouTube channel called 3 Blue 1 Brown, and they have this
Okay.
series on the current state of deep learning, machine learning, and it's just. I mean, most of you will hate it. I'm just warning you. It'll be on your list of hates, not loves. But for me, what I'm looking at is it's an incredibly dorky this one that I have linked to in the show notes. It's 27 minutes long, and the title is, but what is a GPT, Visual Intro to Transformers? It's chapter 5 of a multi-part series, but it really just highlights how these things are functioning in a way that I haven't seen done this well and this clear. And again, I hate math, but there's some really good things that I'm going to be able to pull out of here and kind of repurpose to make a little bit more accessible to the home builder world. But it's really good. If you find yourself wanting to just really understand how these things are working, it's an incredibly great resource. It uses an example, and I'll just use my fingers of like, and I know this is a hot button topic, so don't cancel me, please. But if on a vector format, it says like if the word man is located here and the word woman is here, the distance between those two conceptually would mean that if I take the word man and I say king instead of man, the distance between king and queen should be similar to man and woman. And that's because there are something like 12,000 different dimensions that any one word can be part of. So it's not 2D, 3D, it's 12,000 D. But all those distances communicate relationship, not really meaning, but relationship. And use the other example of like you can use the words German and Japanese, and then say Hitler, or Germany and Italy, and say Hitler, and then Mussolini. Same thing, same distances of where those vertices are connected with each other.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
It took me a minute, but I'm
at
there.
the end of the day, it's all just math.
The word doesn't matter. It's math.
And it's not thought.
Right. It's not the word.
And it's not meaning. It really is true. And he uses really good examples of just showing like it's predicting the next word based upon those relationships with all the other words that have come before.
Interesting. I need to watch this.
Hey, it's worth it just for the
when you
little
watch that, you're like, well, of course there's things that it can do well. Like 12 plus 5, it's not doing the math of 12 plus 5. It knows that if 12 plus 5 is there, 7 equals 17 is the answer. But it's not computing math. That makes sense?
Yeah. I also like that it showed the pitfalls and how it evolved over time too, because I think that's important that people know that, like we're beginning of the conversation, it's not perfect yet. And it's math. So it might never get perfect because the possibilities are infinite, or that distance to perfection is infinite.
What it's trained on, it doesn't know that you're a custom home builder who's going to let people do X, Y, and Z. And so implementing that solution it's not likely that all of the other data it's been trained on is going to have that association between words that you as a custom builder will have. Anyway, go watch the video.
I'll watch it.
With like a lot of coffee, or
sounds good.
Like not in a comfortable place. You might fall asleep, but it's really good. That's my favorite.
That's funny.
All right, that'll do it for this week. We'll see you next time.
See y'all.
Yeah.